Spencer Colgan, and welcome back to the channel. We're going to get our tools prepared for this work, and so the first thing I'm going to do on video is to get the lint off of my roll. This is one of the finest rollers, and it doesn't shed that much. If you do have a roller that sheds a lot, spend a little more money and get one that doesn't. You don't want that in your paint. I'm using a Purdy 1/2 inch. I happen to love these. You shouldn't paint your ceilings with anything less than 1/2 inch because dipping into the tray, if you're not spraying it, is a lot of work on your back. A 1/2 inch roller holds more paint. Now, when you put the roller down, don't put it on a dusty surface. You just spend time cleaning it, and you want to keep it clean. The second thing is the paintbrush. I wet it down before I start using it. I have many paintbrushes. Although it looks beat up, it's broken in really well for the work that we have to do here. So, just come in close, please. Just come in over here. For today's modern kitchens and bathrooms, a lot of the cabinets are particle board. Just come and take a look at the front of this. If you can see, you have to be able to distinguish what is actual wood and what's a laminate. This is clearly a laminate. If I were to use regular tape on this laminate and leave it there for too long, I'm even afraid of demonstrating it for this video. Take the laminate right off. I've seen it happen. So you can't use tacky tape. You have to invest in a tape that's appropriate for delicate surfaces. This is something that you can get in the continental United States, and I'm sure in Hawaii and Alaska as well. But in the UK, I don't know what the equivalent is. But it's called frog tape. And it is really good. It does the job, and it comes right off. It's $10 a roll, but it's worth it because you don't want to take the surface off of the cabinet. But for these areas, laminate surface, we can certainly go back to the less expensive tape. And if you want perfect lines, I suggest to do this. What you want to do on these surfaces is bridge the laminate and the wall. Yes, that actually means you're going to be putting paint on the laminate. But isn't the space an unsightly thing to look at when you see a space between something that's right up against a wall? So you want to join it, which means you're going to be caulking that surface. But then you want the caulking to be painted, right? And so that's what we're doing. You just get that paint in there. I didn't bring it to the surface yet where the tape is. I want to paint above it first. And now, one direction. Not a bunch of movement. And this ensures that I've pushed the paint in sufficiently. And this ensures that I push the paint in sufficiently to make a nice cut line. So let's see how I did. And that'll give you a nice straight line. For the areas where we have laminate and we're looking to protect it, we're going to use our delicate tape. And so, again, we're going to be drawing a straight line with the tape. And you want to actually, with the idea in mind that you're going to be putting paint on this laminate, as long as it's straight, it really, it looks beautiful. Because there's a space here, the wall might go in and out a little bit, and you might have up to 1/8 of an inch of space. It doesn't look right. And so I suggest that you do this. You can see at the bottom, there's 1/8 of an inch gap here. And so we can do a better job. So I'm leaving a 1/16 of an inch of the laminate exposed. You want to leave some of it exposed because you're going to be painting it. You're not looking to cover the laminate completely. You want to paint it. And I stress that because, and if you can't see in the video, I'm leaving some of this brown exposed. That's exactly what I want to do. And we're going to put caulking on it. And we've pressed down the tape sufficiently so that none of this gets underneath it. That would defeat the whole purpose, right? And with a damp finger, one direction, press firmly into the space. And now you can see the manifestation of that space I was talking about. As you see these spaces now in the caulking, I have to put more. I'm using a clear caulking, which is very different than white. It looks white, but it's not. It's going to dry transparent. Also translucent. And the importance of that is that when I remove my yellow tape, I'm going to have the edge of the caulking showing, right? And the paint can't get to it. If you think about it, the edge of this, when I remove it, is going to be the color of the caulking. Because I can't get paint against it. The tape is there. So if you leave it clear, guess what it's going to look like when you remove your tape? It's going to look like your painted surface. It's going to take on the color of your paint. Because it's translucent. And so once again, we start a little away. You don't want to be right on top of the surface because then you're doing excess. Okay, one direction, not back and forth. Just one up, one down. One up, one down. You don't want to move the tape where it's set in place or overstress the caulking where it is. If you do all of this, this is wet caulking. You're going to push it in beyond where you want it, and then guess what? You're going to have to re-caulk, and you might get paint underneath the tape. But this is just right, just up and down. And then, even though it's for delicate surfaces, I don't want to leave this on too long for two reasons. One, I don't want it pulling off my laminate, although I don't think it would. Secondly, I don't want bridging to take place whereby the paint dries against the tape and now you're ripping the paint in it because it's dry. And so there you have your line. Just show them the line. Another technique I want to show you is painting corners, the adjacent wall to which will not be moving. So come in close. We're painting this, but not this. On a video that's going to be published, I show you how to use a foam roller for this particular thing. In this application, I'm going to show you that you can use the brush to paint this side without getting paint on this side. So you just come over here. I'm going to start my paint here in the middle. I got a 36-inch line of paint here. Now I'm going to come close to that corner. Look at my bristles. They can't get on the other side, can they? Come close with the camera. Show them what's going on. Please. See that? See, if I hold my brush like that, my brush draws a perfect line up against that edge because it's not bending onto the other side. For my edges, I'm using a very sharp brush. You can see that it's thin here, and this is where it comes in important. Take a note that there's a difference in holding your brush like this as opposed to like this. You see the difference? By inverting the brush, you put a lot of pressure on the bristles to bring that paint to the corner. I'll show you again what I mean. The point of this brush, before it got worked in like this, is it's pointing this way. The sash is this is the angle. But if I want to use this side, all I have to do is invert it. And I'm putting pressure on the bristles because they were made to go in the other direction, but it brings paint right to the corner and it tends to stay a lot straighter. If I do this, guess what? Take a look at here. Put the camera right here. Look at the mess of that grouping of the bristles there. You see that? Yeah. As opposed to this. Look at that. You see, only the top is touching, and that's all I need. So I'm inverting it from the pointed edge to making the pointed edge on the bottom. And I'm using the pressure that's on those bristles to go against the angle for which the thing was manufactured to paint. I'm making the brush work in my favor without using it with the pointy side up. I put it down and it gives me the right amount of pressure to bring the paint to the corner. One of the benefits of using a really good roller is that you don't have to worry about splatter unless you're using a cheap paint, because the fibers in this half-inch Purdy really absorb the paint. Now when you're painting next to a dark wall or cabinets, don't just throw tape on them. Remember what I said earlier in the video. You might pull off the laminate. Here's how I suggest you do it. Just come close, real slow, but pressing firmly on the roller. Straight up and down. Give it a couple of passes, up and down. Real slow. And that is how I suggest you do it. Now, you should finish always in the same direction, so I'm coming down here. It's good to go up and down on this textured surface because you fill it in better. Don't just think one or two passes is going to do it. I showed you earlier in the video how to paint this edge without painting this. Here's the way you could do it with a roller. Now if I do it like this, I'm not going to be able to control what the roller does after it leaves this corner. We could expect that at least a little bit it's going to go in before I sense that it's going in the wrong direction. So here's how I suggest you do it. On an angle. You see how using the roller on an angle prevents it from wrapping around and touching the side of the wall? It can't go on the other side because I'm using the roller to prevent that from happening by simply painting on an angle. Now I realize this is the same color in a gloss that this is in flat, but if this were a black paint, you would see a pretty good edge here. And I'm taking advantage of that reality, that I can use this fuzzy roller that's half inch without giving the eye the impression that I have gotten this paint on here. Now if this were black and this were this color, I would use a very dry foam roller, put a little paint on it, and do the same action. So this part of the cabinetry, I don't suggest that if you're proficient with a brush that you waste time taping it, because there's a space there and your brush can simply get behind it. So I'm putting an inch of paint on the bristles. That's a lot, and we're only going to be doing less than 2 feet of space, back and forth. Don't go too slow here. That's when you might mess up. I start below, then I work my way up because I don't want to put too much paint against it. One direction, and then again in the opposite direction, because you're painting over bumps. This is textured, so you want to get both sides of the bump. There are ways of controlling the mess you make when you paint. A lot of people don't realize it, and if you don't paint frequently, there would be no reason for you to know this. These bristles, everybody has cleaned before. You know what happens when you clean and the bristles do this. It flicks water, right? The same thing with a paintbrush. So now when I'm doing this, nothing's flicking off of these bristles. I'm going to show you how I'll flick this paint. Watch this. You don't want to do that. Certainly not close to a cabinet. Now, if you didn't know how to use the brush, you'd have to cover everything. But here's how to save time and aggravation. My brush is wet. Watch where I start. I go this way. I'm getting the paint dissipated on the wall, so it's not too thick over here. Now I can start going back and forth to get the paint worked into the surface. But look, when I'm coming over here near this cabinet, I'm not doing this. No, watch. I keep the brush on the wall. Look. See what I'm doing? See the difference? Instead of giving the brush an opportunity to jump off the wall and flex while it's off the wall and spit paint, I'm keeping it on the wall. I can do without looking. Because I'm keeping pressure against the wall and I'm not letting my brush throw paint around. Now, if you weren't conscious of that, here's what you would do. Right? Look at all this flickery going on here. I'm using a dry brush practically, so not flicking anything. But this is what a lot of people are doing. And then they look at their surface and it's got all paint on it. So there's a tip for you when you're painting near a surface that's a lot darker than the paint you're using. So after you do that, you take a roller. You go as close to you can, as close to this, you go as close to the ceiling as possible. And so now we want to keep it all wet and drying at the same time. So I want to get the top painted so there's no halo. What is the halo? It's that ring at the top that happens when you let the wall dry and then you try to paint in your edge at the top. Now you see what's happening? It's all going to dry at the same time. And you stay as close to the ceiling as you can with your brush. In other words, don't bring your brush down here. You've rolled it. And you're just brushing the top. Then I come in with my roller again. And if I brought my brush too far down, I'm going to clean that up with this, so that it all looks like it was rolled. So now this is a good way to demonstrate how to paint a wall. It's only a 4.5 foot wide wall. The same procedure applies for a larger wall. So now you want to paint the wall. You're painting with a roller. Nobody paints with just a brush anymore. So it's going to be a combination of a brush and a roller. So, what do you do first? Do you roll the wall and then brush on the paint at the top and at the bottom? What do you think? What would that do to the overall look of the job? Theoretically, you could do that, right? You could paint the wall first with a roller and then cut the top and the bottom in. Not a good idea. This is what you should do first. Take my paint roller, and now I'm going to start rolling this wall. Where do I start? Seven feet off the ground. I go up. I'm just laying my paint on the wall. I'm going to draw from that in a moment. Now, I go to the edge. This is the first part of it. I'm just getting the paint in all the nooks and crannies. Now, I can lay it out. I'm satisfied that all of my surface is covered. Watch this. I give it a little more wetness. I go to the top, straight down. I overlap what I just did by 50%. Watch this. Again. We have an obstacle. Same thing, up, up, down. Don't go back and touch this, it's setting up already. This is called keeping a wet edge. In other words,
you see the vertical line that I'm making with my roller to the left of the roller? That's my wet edge. If you should let that dry in the middle of painting a wall and then come back, you're going to see the line where it dried and where you began painting again. No, you can't do that. You have to do what's called maintaining a wet edge.
you can go up and down like this. You could even do this if you're going around something, but the final stroke has to be the same for every column throughout the wall. Once again, please remember that we're putting some paint on the cabinet. Yes, that's what we're doing. The reason we're doing that is because we want to bridge the surface of the cabinet and the painted surface to make it look like it's one. Don't worry about getting paint on your cabinet. You're controlling it by only letting 1/16 of an inch of paint, but it looks beautiful when you put the caulking in there, so you don't see a crack. And you would agree that it looks better painted, right? You don't want to get cocky here and go too fast. So don't worry about going slow. Now, case in point, did anybody see what just happened with my brush? Show them this mistake so that they know professionals can make the same errors as well. This is what I'm trying to tell my good viewers not to do with their brush, because your brush will throw paint when you're taking it off of the surface. Okay, so please do the right thing. You want your job to look beautiful, right? My paint is loaded up, so what we're doing for the customer here is giving him an alabaster Sherwin-Williams color over what's already alabaster. The only difference is this is eggshell and we're going over flat. You know how the builders are when they put contractor grade paint on walls. It's always the cheapest stuff and it's super thin. So if you're buying a new house, you want to paint it within a year, because the paint that they used, unless you specified what you wanted, is probably the cheapest stuff. Everything's good. Look at that nice crisp line. I mean, that's beautiful, isn't it? Wow. Gave the client new lines above the backsplash and along the cabinet trim.
Hey, thanks a lot for stopping by my channel and watching this video. Please click on like and subscribe. When you hit the subscribe button, please hit the all button that follows at the very top, because then YouTube will let you know when new videos come out, and this helps support my channel in the production of new videos. Thank you so much for joining me in this awesome field of home decoration, wallpaper, and painting.